sleep aid.
Somebody listened last year. We were here a year ago.
That's true.
It's on that there.
Take two.
Get a blip. It's really bad delay.
Yeah, there you go. It's on now.
Welcome to the Centerville City Council meeting of September 4, 2018. Council meeting is now in session. We began this evening with a joint session with our youth council at 5:30 and had a nice meeting with them. This youth council works hard for our city and doing activities, and many of the activities that the city does during the year, such as the egg roll and the pumpkin walk, they're really involved with that, and we appreciate them, as well as all our other committees that serve within the city and our residents that serve of their own free time. So let's start tonight by making sure we have a quorum. We'll start down here on the end with Councilman Entz.
I'm here.
Meekum? Ivy?
McEwen?
Fillmore?
So let it be noted for the record that all five council people are present. Let's begin tonight with a prayer thought, and I will give that prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we are so very grateful for this opportunity that we have to be gathered as residents of this great and friends of this great city of Centerville. We're thankful for the opportunity and the freedoms we have to be able to have our voice be heard, to be involved in the public process. We're so very grateful for all those that work on behalf of the city. Bless those dedicated employees, and bless all our residents of the city as they go about their activities. Bless our fire department and our police department and the activities that they respond to. Now help us this evening that we may be able to use good wisdom and judgment, that we may be have a listening ear, and that we may be able to do the things that the people would want us to do, and that we may make good decisions with thy help. And this we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So let's, now I'd like you to all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll stand, and if you'll repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On tonight's agenda, we do have a couple of items that are public hearing items, and so we'll be discussing those later, but right now it is our open session, and these are items that anyone has that they want to come up to one of these two microphones and just to share any feelings that they may have. Try and limit your comments to a couple of minutes. And so I will open that open session now if there's anyone that desires to do that. Will you please state your name as well too, and where you're from?
You bet. I'm Stephen Merrill. I live in the south part of Centerville. I just wanted to make sure that I had the chance to share thoughts on the development of the Old Dix area. Are we going to be discussing that later, or should I share my thoughts now?
That's later.
That is
Okay.
going to be one of the
Thank
public hearing items. So thank you, Stephen. Any other items on the open session? So you'll have that chance at that time. Any other of you that want to come and discuss anything at the open session? If not, I will close the open session and we'll go to the business of the meeting. The first item on the agenda is the minutes review and acceptance. We have minutes of August 7th, City Council minutes, August 21st, City Council minutes, August 21st, work session minutes, and August 28th, special meeting minutes. So, council members, I would welcome any comments about those minutes at all. If no comments, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that all 4 of those stated minutes, as written in the staff report, are approved.
We have a motion to approve all 4 of those minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and this one that I've looked forward to with excitement, because this is our July 4th celebration report by the Tonys, who worked so hard, and it was such a pleasure for me to get to know them and their committee this past year, and that's such a big, important part of our community, and our residents just enjoy it, as well as other city residents, and don't even realize all that goes on behind the scenes sometimes. So we're thrilled to have the Tonys here to give us their report.
Well, thank you for inviting us to come and to report. And we are grateful for the opportunity that we had to serve and to get to know so many good people in this community. We are also grateful for you for allocating funds every year to put this together. We've learned over the last couple of years how well known this celebration is outside of Centerville and how many people it draws. And this year I just wanted to share with you one experience that we had that again kind of enlightened us as to what a unique celebration this is. So during the breakfast time, we were visiting with the mayor and Bruce Cox, and just standing there in the breakfast area, and Bruce pointed out a man that was wandering through the park. It's a homeless man, just kind of going through, looking, not rummaging, but looking in garbage dumpsters. And he said, just want to point him out to you. So we went over and invited him to have breakfast, and we ended up having breakfast with him and our family. And then he stayed for a while for the parade. And as we visited with him, he kept asking us questions about, what is this? Who does this? Who organizes this? Do you do this every year? And then when the flyover came, he was just aghast. He was so thrilled by what he had seen. And then he was gone, and we never saw him again. But it literally was as if he had been transported to another planet. He kept saying, I've never seen anything like this. I've never been in a place where people can just gather, and families and groups of people, and just so safe and clean. He just couldn't believe it. So, you know, for us who've just always thought that this is how all of America does on the 4th of July, we walked away with a new appreciation for what this community offers its citizens and those that are around it. So thank you. Thank you for investing what city funds you do to make this such a good, strong community. It builds the community. And now for the bad news. No.
That's where I come in. Okay, so we're going to first talk about budget, and you probably have a budget sheet that has a detailed budget. The total budget for the celebration was $26,000, and so in the first column of the spreadsheet that is on the screen and that you have in front of you is how we allocated the $26,000 budget. The next column are the actual expenditures or the actual income or positive. And then the third column is the difference. We've noted 6 items that are maybe a little bit notable in the comments. And so I'll just mention those really quickly. The attendees to the breakfast were 1,150. That's actually the lowest we've had in some time. The trend is going down. There, we don't know why. Maybe people are eating differently, I don't know. Or it may be that the celebration the night before is late, and so maybe that's affecting it. But we've noticed that, but the breakfast is still profitable. There were increased fees for the concert that you see noted there. The school district has been late in submitting a bill, so we don't know their actual bill. We had more bands and more floats than we've had in many years. And so the cost that they're at was actually higher because we pay for floats and bands. And so that's why that was a little bit over. In publicity, we incurred some one-time expenses that'll be saved and be usable items for future. And Signal Wealth, which is actually my company, actually contributed some money. But we were a little bit over budget. We were over budget $303. So you can fire us.
Good try.
And if we refuse to?
All right. Sorry about that. We're fired. But anyway, the other things that we just want to mention, and I won't go through all the detail in the written report that you have, but the celebration, all facets of the celebration went really well. We had several repeat committee members who repeated with us, and so we had a lot of experienced committee members, and then the new committee members at least equaled the performance that we've seen in their committees, and so the celebration was really outstanding, and there were just great contributions by everybody. Some of the notable changes from this year from last year, and you probably remember that we did repeat from last year, but was that we had city employees that were involved in the parade committee. And one of the main reasons that we actually wanted to repeat and agreed to repeat was because the parade has been unsustainable from a volunteer standpoint. And we've been really concerned about that because everybody that's done the parade in the last number of years has said, don't ever ask me to do this again. And we wanted to see if we could change that. And so we worked with Steve and several city employees who made great contributions to the parade committee. And Ken and Colleen Webb, who were the parade chairs, greatly appreciated that support, and so their task as parade chairs weren't so insurmountable, and so we really appreciate all the city employees and their contributions to the parade. I already mentioned the increased numbers in the floats and bands. That was through the deliberate efforts of the Webbs to reach out to stakes and bands around, and so we were able to get increases there, and really enjoyed that. The other notable thing with the parade is we enforced a deadline for the parade, with one exception, who rides a horse. And we probably know who that would be. But we did enforce, and we told the parade chairs, we encouraged them to enforce the hard cutoff, because all the action that's happened in the past from the cutoff date to the parade has made the parade the mess for the organizers that it's been. And so we encouraged them to keep that hard cutoff, and they did that. We turned away about nine people who were late, and made one. Yeah, and hopefully they won't be late next year. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. And then the other notable thing is Centerville's Got Talent is really becoming more and more popular. It's exciting to see how that is filling a great need right after the parade to bring people back to the park, and it's a great benefit to the vendors as well. So we added more seating this year. That was totally filled up, and it was still a standing room crowd only. And it's a phenomenal show. So, and it's fun to, every year people ask us, is the police auction still going to happen? And it hasn't happened for several years, but this is a good spot for it. So we just recommend that you look at the budget and eke it up a little bit. We kind of anticipate bands are going to stay at that higher level. The fireworks may creep up too. We were able to kind of negotiate a tougher deal with them this year, and we got 2.5 more minutes of firepower and more shells for the same cost. But I don't know if he's going to be so good about doing that in future years. So I think costs will just continue to eke up a little bit. And then the last recommendation specific for the City Council is please arrive to the parade staging area on time. This came directly from our parade chairs. They said they're about ready to send a few cars out without you. No names. But anyway, so just that's a friendly reminder for next year. So, and then we just wanted to make sure that you knew on the back of this report is a list of all of our volunteers. Of course, there were some city employees here that were so invaluable. Steve and Jake and Mackenzie and Bruce and Lisa Summers and Luann Child. But the others are all volunteers, and they were just phenomenal. Centerville has the best people in the world. So, you have any questions?
Just to make clear on the budget, it looks like the breakfast actually made a little net profit, net revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
462
Yeah.
net.
Typically, it's been closer to 1,000.
Okay, but because the numbers were down,
Yeah.
okay.
I think everybody's kind of afraid of running out of food, so they tend to order a little bit more, but we've recommended that in future years, numbers are going down slowly, and I still think we still think it's worth having the
great,
breakfast. But, you're going to have to watch their costs very carefully and not over-order.
So we were thrilled to see higher numbers of floats and bands, which really make a parade.
Absolutely.
Something we've been shooting for years. So am I hearing you correctly that you believe that's directly attributable to the help received from the employees? So did they spend that time reaching out to find more of that? Or?
Actually, the employees
Did other things that
So
allowed the Webs to reach out more
Okay.
on the floats and the bands. And so, but the employee things they did, they sent out early notices for parade entries. They collected parade entries, they collected money, they handled contracts with property owners.
Yeah.
There were lots of things that were very institutional in nature, that having city employees have that knowledge and experience
Yeah.
avoids a volunteer having to figure out something that they have no clue figuring out from year to year.
Yeah.
So they took all that institutional experience and applied it for the benefit of the parade chairs, and it helped.
Well, I just thank you for sticking with us this second year and seeing that need. And when you suggested that last year, I strongly supported it. But then how exciting to see actual results and changes in the parade. It just felt much more like a parade rather than an advertisement through the whole thing.
Yeah,
Pleased
yeah,
with that.
yeah. They worked hard with that, and they literally called every in the county. They just reached out and called and called and called and called and called, and were able to spend all that time. to do that.
Fantastic.
So
Thank you.
So
Hi.
then, I'll just say, we had a lot of fun, we really
Yeah.
did. We got home tired on the 4th, but we had a fabulous committee, and they did a great job, and it was a great celebration, so.
Well, we
So
gave you a
thank you.
standing ovation last time. How do we top that with our thanks?
you we'll just say goodbye.
You guys did do an awesome
We're so
job,
thankful.
and we can't thank you enough. And I had so many great reviews on the parade, and people were really impressed with the more bands and the better floats, and I just heard great things this time about the parade, and we just can't tell you thank you enough. You were just been amazing.
I think the
It's been our
thing,
privilege.
I think the thing neat to me is I'd always watch my kids in the parade, but I've never been in it. But being in the parade and looking out to the side and seeing families that were all gathered together from extended families, coming from other cities around, and friends gathered together. It just was an amazing feeling. It was incredible.
That's cool.
Really
That's
was.
great.
And then
neat.
serving at the breakfast, shooting off the gun. I mean, I had a great time.
You did good.
So, and you guys were wonderful, and your committee, you're getting to know your committee members as well too. So, anything else from council? So,
We've just recommended, we've sent the mayor's recommendations of people from sources and that could serve really well. There's just a great amount of notes from every committee. So we're happy to work with whoever takes us on next year and help repeat the process so that it can stay strong. So, okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Well, that was fun. Item number 3, report and discussion regarding the impact of West Davis Corridor project on North Centerville. This is something that we had a couple of our residents bring up with us, and so we have brought, the residents are here, and we've also brought in, are you back there, Corey?
Yep.
Corey Snyder as well, too. Is you leading the discussion on that, Corey?
No.
No, okay. So let's talk about this West Davis Corridor project. And who's leading that? Do we have Jake and Joey here? Okay, great. Jake Willis and Joey Wilson. You guys can come to both the one podium or separate podiums, whatever you want to do.
Whoever has the better vision can,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Jake Willis,
Joey Wilson.
and we live in the northwest area of Centerville, and we love this city. I'm thankful that the members of the city council have given us some time there, and also the people of Centerville. We've had the opportunity to meet with some working groups with UDOT. They've been pretty good about reaching out to some of the more, what they deemed impacted communities along the whole corridor along through Farmington. As many of you are probably well aware of, the environmental impact study was finished last year, and then they approved the record of decision, basically our alternative B1 as they call it. And so we really were, we actually had a meeting in Farmington with UDOT and where they discussed some, they laid out the plan and then just talked about some design options and stuff we can certainly review. But their main objective of that was to discuss sort of aesthetics and things along it. So we're pretty much locked in. But there are some things that concerned us as citizens, and we want to make sure that the people in the city, the residents are aware of, as well as the city council members. Now that font's incredibly small, so I'll just read to you what it says, and then we'll look at some of the slides. It shouldn't take long. I guess I should have used a bigger font. Okay, so some of the discussion items that I have here. Construction of the West Davis corridor will start in the next year or two. With the construction, the freeway will be much closer and have a real impact on the quality of life for many Centerville residents. And that's noise and pollution exposure will obviously increase. And that's something that will affect all residents, not just those in the area that we live and reside. Starting just south of Chase Lane, and I'll review these on the slides, but just some bullet points. Starting just south of Chase Lane, there will be 8 to 12 feet of additional pavement installed for additional lane and expanded freeway shoulder to accommodate the new West Davis corridor on-ramp. The existing sound barrier will likely come down in many parts of the area and definitely come down in other areas. The new West Davis corridor on-ramp will be partially built on the location of existing sound barrier. And some questions I just put here: will the sound barrier relocated and rebuilt? Obviously, those are things for UDOT and others to consider, but things that will impact us. What are the engineering limitations of the height to the with respect to the barrier and respect to the available space? One thing that one of the managers of the project had told us in the Farmington meeting in April was that they have a real safety and engineering limit as far as the wall can only be as tall as 1/2 of the buffer space. So for example, if the buffer's 12 feet, then safety and engineering say it should probably be 6 feet so if it fell over. Now obviously he's mentioned that there's some ways they can work around that and still be safe, but these are things that I want to make sure that we as residents are making sure that we're protected
from the impending noise and pollution that will increase in our area.
What is the height of the current?
I haven't taken a tape measure out there. I guess 12 to 15, just eyeballing it. I don't know if there's
I'm guessing you may be even bigger, 12.
bigger,
maybe 20.
16, 20? Okay,
I don't know though.
Okay.
Yes.
good question though, yeah, because that would definitely play into that. And then on some of the slides at approximately 1825 north, the freeway is at the existing sound barrier and continues to jog in an eastward direction. And you'll see that'll force the sound wall relocation, and hopefully that means it will get it put back up. Freeway traffic will be up to 8 to 50 feet closer to residents along all of frontage. This means increased sound and carbon monoxide exposure. Topography plays an important role, which is something that many might not consider in exposure to freeway noise. If you can see the source, you can hear the source. So if it's moving closer, even people that are a little bit on the hill will have an increased noise, and that would be another be important to consider sound barriers. Will there be sufficient space between the new West Davis Corridor and Frontage Road to construct a very much needed sound barrier? That's one of the outstanding questions. Will there be sufficient space to accommodate the new bike trail and a sound barrier? The bicyclists and motorists on Frontage Road will only be about 8 to 16 feet from the new freeway. And a sound barrier would be beneficial to the bicyclists and residents to preserve quality of life, something to think about. And then per UDOT, while the alternative B1, which I had mentioned, the plan that impacts Centerville, has been approved, the designs are not exact or final. That's what they've told us. The alternative is final, but I'm imagining that there must be a little bit of play there, maybe when they have the final.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, my understanding is that they will put the exit in Centerville. They will, they know basically where it's going, where, the master plan, so to speak, but, how many lanes and the exact measurement from the walls and all these things are still, according to what they're telling us, still malleable.
Okay, if we can just go through the slides real quick, some points to consider. So this first slide, if you sort of scroll to the bottom, that first yellow circle at the bottom, so that's starting just south of Chase Lane. So this is according to their final approved B1 alternative. And to Joey's point, he just said this could shift plus or minus, but this is the overlay on the satellite imagery on the planned. So I'm hoping there's some more give, but if it's not, this is what the things that we can expect and anticipate. Now there's a layer, if you go to the West Davis Corridor website, up in the top left you can see some of the options, and you can layer it. I took off the pavement, but I left the pavement edge. So where you see the black lines and yellow lines, I'll talk about those in a second. But that big yellow circle at the bottom, so starting right there, there will be 8 to 12 feet of additional pavement installed for an additional lane and expanded freeway shoulder to accommodate the new West Davis Corridor on-ramp. Then that green circle is the existing sound barrier, and it's hard to see from here, but you can see from the satellite imagery there's a little shadow on it. That's the sound barrier. Then as we progress north, you see the new edge of the paved road, that black line there. So you can see it's pretty dang close already and moves quite a bit over closer to that sound wall. And then you see the new striping and the white dashes, and some of it's covered by the black that will be needed to accommodate the new lanes. If we progress to the next slide, please. So this is up to Centerville Park, and obviously it's gradually been jogging over, but I just wanted to make that point that with the addition of a lane or two, we'll be 8 to 12 feet closer to the park, and it's already fairly loud there if you're playing softball or soccer in those fields. For the residents, just something to consider, that traffic and pollution will be closer. Next slide, please. At approximately 1825 north, you can see that top square. By 1825 north, or just slightly north of it, the freeway will actually be 16 to 12 feet closer to Centerville residents, bringing in more noise, etc. And then the new, that big yellow arrow you see, the new freeway will be actually, that's where it intersects with our current sound wall. So it'll have to jog, obviously, to the right. Next slide, please. The next one is, this next one's Centerville Park. No, this next one is Woods Park. Okay, great. So this last one, from the very bottom, that square, you see the rectangle, the freeway will effectively be 40 to 50 feet closer, and you can see the sort of white split. There's 2 additional lanes plus a shoulder, plus there's 2, you can see the white vertical stripe. That's the West Davis Corridor on-ramp, basically, and there's 2 lanes to accommodate that, plus a shoulder, and then those 2 yellow ovals, basically my questions there, is there enough space? It's pushed onto existing Lund. Is there enough space for the bike path? And this is obviously more south, but just at this point, it's sort of so far over, and were there residents impacted in that area, in full disclosure? Is there enough room to accommodate a sound wall? And I want to make sure that the UDOT and engineers can support us in that, because the quality of life at that point for the residents will be dramatically impacted. And there's many residents along that, but I think they'll probably feel the greatest impact.
Just to add a couple thoughts, I'm not sure if Centerville already understands the impacts here and possibly is wasting money on renovations to the frontage road that may get wiped out anyway. That's something to be aware of. Maybe, and I have no idea if that's already, if you guys already know how that's going to play out as they do that. Does anybody have an answer on that?
Are you talking about the existing construction you're
Yes.
seeing right now?
Yeah.
That's actually a federal project to bring in the widening of a bike lane.
Okay.
So we're hoping that UDOT
somebody
and the
didn't
federal are talking on that, I would hope. Steve, you have more comments on that?
From this aerial satellite, it looks like at the very least they're going to have to tear up a lot of frontage down this north section, including the new bike lane that's going to this. So
Yeah, we would just, I mean, they would go do all this construction, spend all this money, get in the way of everybody, and then in a year, wipe the whole thing out. That would be unfortunate.
Well, question about that, do you know at this point, is it, the ramp is probably elevated somewhat, right?
Not until you get all the way down to the end here, where when you get to about Woods Park on the border of Centerville on that northern side,
Is that where it just starts elevating?
that's where it starts lifting.
We have a high-tech pointer we can edge there.
It works.
I thought it was a laser, but I could use a pencil. All right. So you can see here it starts to split. So these are two new, sorry, I don't want to tap on that. These are two new lanes as well as a shoulder. And then you have 2 lanes for West Davis Corridor on-ramp as that splits off. And then this will eventually go over. And then you have the shoulder. And then that's the shoulder. This edge of this black is the shoulder. And then this is effectively the gap. And then this is new Lund lane they'll have to push over. But right now, the bike lane's like right here. So that's the existing shoulder of the freeway, the future West Davis. So at the very least, that's going to be redone. So oops, I guess. But you know, it'll start to rise up here, and I believe by the time it hits Lund, you'll start to see that rise, and then maybe a block or two north in that South Farmington area, you'll really see it about 10 or 12, 15 feet above Lund Lane, above frontage. Excuse me.
So right at Woods Park, though, it pretty much would be ground level?
Well, I think it starts to jog up here, but as far as, yeah, a noticeable thing, I'm not sure. It could be plus or minus at that point.
Okay.
We could check the plans for if there's an indication on when it
elevation.
actually lifts.
But they're just
But
giving us
my
a
understanding, and I could be wrong, is that it starts to lift right there at the border of the city, maybe just before it. Our concern and the reason we're here, at least my hope out of this meeting, is to make sure that we don't just get steamrolled by UDOT when they come in to do these final designs. Because if we don't show them some resistance courteously and you know, with courtesy but standing up for ourselves here, they're going to come in and just lay their designs down, and they're going to execute. And that may mean freeway right next to the back doors of many residents. If anybody lives along the frontage road, there's going to be severe impact. We both live along it, and we want to make sure that message gets spread. However, in talking to UDOT, I've talked with the project managers a fair amount, and they seem to be understanding of the impact and willing to work with us to get that wall put up. Well, that's a big part of this, is the sound wall has to stay there or be rebuilt if they're going to redo it. And that also needs to be extended where there's gaps right now, like in Woods Park. Mm-hmm. If they don't put the sound wall in now, we won't ever have one, because UDOT's policies are to only put it in when there are, these big projects going on. So we need to just be aware of this issue, and over the coming year, we need to be right on UDOT's tail with anything that goes in and make sure. They're promising me that these designs, even the stuff that's listed here, can be shaped, and even the contractors make some final decisions or some final design proposals. Let's hope that they're not just appeasing us right now and then later go and do what they want anyway.
Yeah.
What is the timing of the rest of the project?
So they're finishing other evaluations, but the build, I believe, is late 2019, early 2020 to start with. And I don't know where it will start. Will they start at the north end? Will they start at the south end of the West Davis corridor in 2 spots, 3 spots? I'm not sure about that. But they'll effectively, after this EIS was passed last summer and then the record of decision was last fall, they're basically getting all their ducks lined up. And so we want to make sure that, and they've been gracious enough to keep us informed, which we really appreciate. But we want to make sure that as residents, I mean, we love this great city. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of the impact. And I'm sure there's some that maybe didn't realize that, oh, wow, it's going to affect us a lot more than we thought. We thought maybe it was just the northwest corner or something like that. It really is all a frontage road. And at the very least, there's much of that sound wall that's going to be relocated closer. I mean, hopefully they relocate it, put it back up. But that just means that the noise and pollution will be that much closer. Even with the sound wall, it'll effectively be however many feet closer to the residents. And so things to consider, and we're hopeful that maybe some city council members and the mayor and others and city managers might have the ability to help put some respectful pressure, if you will.
So,
Right. Yeah, and the last I heard from Rex Harris, who's one of the project managers, I believe. Yes, he is. I got an email from him not long ago, maybe last week. It said basically they are several months out from the design work that will take place on the noise wall along your neighborhood. You know, they promised they would follow state policy, but that's you know, that could be a nice way of saying, well, state policy is going to allow us to just go in. So anyway, we're sensitive to it and wanted to make sure everybody understands the implications here so that collectively as a group we can stand up for Centerville.
Yeah.
so Steve, you and I met, Christensen, is that his name, the regional manager?
Chris Peterson.
Peterson.
Rex Harris is an employee was an employee of Region 1. I assume he still is.
So can we get Chris Peterson a meeting with me or a meeting before the council? I mean,
Or his designee if there's a project manager for this project, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
because he gave us the card for the hotline to him, so.
Oh, yeah? You have the red phone?
Yeah. So that would be the one to go to, wouldn't it?
Well, we could start with a call to Chris, and if it's Rex Harris, it's a project manager, that might be.
I've got Randy Jeffries and Rex Harris as my contacts. I have their phone numbers and emails.
But starting with Chris would be appropriate.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, you can get some information as well, but I think it would be great for some of the citizens as well to get some more transparent information from these guys. It would be so impactful to the city. We would hate to see us miss an opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out and willing to take your time to participate and to keep us informed. This is actually coming at a good time because we have, as the frontage road, as we're doing the resurfacing, one of the requests we made last year was to put some water under the road so we could do some beautification. So I'm going to change it from beautification to defensive landscaping. and we need to understand how we're going to do that, and whether that's fast-growing tall trees. I don't know if this is the point where we get Kevin involved. Kevin is our city engineer, contract engineer, to at least help us roadmap what that looks like. Because if we're going to go into a beautification effort, I don't want to be tearing trees out. And if there's any way to literally get ahead of the curve with some of those trees and some beautification to help mitigate that in addition to a sound wall, I'd prefer to get on that now.
That's an excellent point, Mr. McEwen. I think that trees and others, there's an EPA link I have at the bottom of the link that says that sound barriers are great, but work used in tandem with trees and things, it really is effective at mitigation.
Yeah, and one more quick point. One thing that we might be able to push for is for them to just move this whole project north a little bit into Farmington and bend the exit into that area near where there are no homes up there near, what's the skate park called in Farmington there, right along the frontage road, whatever it is. If you push it a block north and bend the road a little bit, bend the exit out a little bit, we might be able to save our space along the frontage road. And so they should give us a really good answer as to why they're not willing to do that, I think.
then it could be that environmental EIS right there, because there's some wetlands right there. But just
We got to have wetlands in
okay.
Centerville.
Well, we didn't want to take up too much time.
Thanks
No.
for
Thank
your
you
so
work
much.
on this.
So,
and
so
for
is there a corresponding southbound exit off on the other side?
Yeah, on the other side, that would be.
Is there? I'm not sure there
I
is.
can't zoom in, but you could go to that website and look. There is.
Is there?
Yeah, I would imagine something close, north or south of that. But that north, as you get onto that on-ramp, it's kind of a bigger on-ramp, kind of like they do, where is it, south of here as you're going towards 500, maybe they kind of have a longer.
So it's kind of like the ramp coming in off of 89 onto Legacy and the freeway. I mean,
Yeah, it goes
big
quite a
sweeping
ways.
thing,
I mean, if you look at it, it really starts at, well, just north of Parrish and south of Chase, you can see they start to do construction with an expanded shoulder in another lane. It kind of jogs off, so I don't know what that distance is from there, from Parrish up to Lund, but.
Thank you.
We thank you, Jake and Joey. This is a wonderful example of citizen politics and you getting involved and bringing this before us so we can follow up further on it. And you think you're as well prepared as you were too, the homework that you've done as well too.
Yeah, well, we're concerned, I mean, it could impact all the quality of life at a minimum, so we want to mitigate that as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So Steve, can we get Kevin involved, at least in preliminary, to find out when they're actually going to finish this alignment? And because I really do want to understand if we do that beautification, I am going to refer to it as defensive landscaping from now on, how we can make that happen, because I really want to get some trees in next year. So, but the alignment's going to be the critical one on that.
Yeah, whether it's Kevin or a in-house staff member, we'll follow up.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to item 4 on our agenda. This is a public hearing item. This is the PDO zone map amendment, conceptual site plan, and conceptual subdivision plan of Sheffield Downs at 274 East, Pages Lane. And to start this, we will start with the staff presentation. And I knew, Corey, we had you for something. I just thought you enjoyed coming to council so much that, but this is what Corey was going to present on. So this is our city planner, Corey Snyder.
I love to come to council when I'm not involved. That's the funner part of it. As you indicated, this is a request to the city council for taking a portion of the Dix Market area and redeveloping it with some residential uses. As you recall, we went through a planning effort for the southeast neighborhood and discussed whether we were going to maintain the commercial in that area, whether we would allow options for residential. Ultimately, the city council did adopt some guidelines to be flexible, to honor the commercials there if it can be successful, but if it's deemed at some point in time not successful, that there's opportunity for redevelopment. So as part of that, the process that was required by the council was any redevelopment to residential had to be a planned development overlay request. So it had to include a legislative decision, not only for the rezone of the property from commercial to residential, but also you would see some of the conceptual design elements and weigh in on those parameters. Due to time and the developer's request, I won't go through the details and just reserve myself for some questions either before or after any public comment, but let the developer make the presentation and pitch on their project specific. But I will summarize the Planning Commission's effort. The developer approached the city with an application. It was prepared in a manner of some concern on how much effort in the design needed to be in place when there was a question of whether this would follow through in its entirety and come to the city for any approval. We had a discussion at the Planning Commission level. Planning Commission did table action and requested, based on their experience of past similar requests, that more detail is needed to understand what you're desiring of the project. Staff also raised a number of issues of concern from a design standpoint to the project. They came back with a submittal, and that submittal is what is in your packet with all of the site plan layouts and some of the narrative on their architecture. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did make a positive recommendation for the change of the PDO. Just be aware of summary. The opportunity to go to residential is for the residential medium density. The residential medium density is a maximum of 6 units per acre. However, as you're aware, with a PDO, a request can be made for bonus density of up to 20%. They are not requesting the 20%. They are limiting it to the 6 units per acre. So you'll see in the recommendations coming to you that the bonus density is not part of the request and that it'll be limited to 6 units an acre. Also, they are committing to a single family design. Residential medium allows various housing types. This PDO is coming to you as a single family development and only single family. And so if you were to approve it tonight, the Planning Commission's recommendation is be limited to the single family product for the RM zone. Be aware that most of the standards for the residential medium, they're intending to comply with their submittals. However, the PDO does allow some flexibility to the zones, and they are requesting the setback changes. And so you'll see a section in the recommendation that defines the setbacks. Typically, it's a 25-foot setback and 8 and 10 on the sides between buildings. With the 33 units, they're asking for closer setbacks, 10-foot separation between the buildings, and they're asking for closer setbacks to the private street, which is unique. They will not be dedicating a public street as a part of the project. They will build it to the RM design standards for a private street, which for public information has been further defined by the city ordinance of 27 feet wide instead of the 24 or 25-foot wide roads. So it will be pavement-wise pretty close to a standard road, but the right-of-way that's typically in a public, for meaning the sidewalks and the park strips, is part of their front yard in the design of their project, so it will be a private street. It will have to be built to city standards as far as depth of construction, your road base, your asphalt specs. We require those so that that road is built to at least a city standard for endurance purposes in a private development. There's a couple of things that are happening in the development. They will convert a little over 5 acres to the project. The area involves just over 6 acres. The other remaining portion that's not being converted to residential is the old bank building, which now has been converted to a nail salon. So that nail salon is part of a larger parcel within the project. So the nail salon will need to be divided away and become a standalone lot of itself. But they are designing the entrances around it, accounting for the parking. There's some conditions in further review, if it did move forward, that the commercial areas maintain the parking necessary by code so they don't drop below the demand needs of the commercial uses. So you'll see that in there. Another tidbit of information other than the design is there's a requirement that a perpetual ability to connect this private development to any proposal in the future, meaning the Dix Ace and the other area. If that ever converts, we wanted some type of ability to minimize the number of cuts that are occurring on Pages Lane. On their east entrance, they've committed to dedicate a portion of that entrance for shared access.
Corey, could you use that pointer and orient us a little bit?
Oh, I wish we had the colored one. The landscaping, is there a colored one in there?
Right top.
Okay, so if we come here, here's your...
The landscaping one is the bottom of the packet, isn't
Yeah,
it?
here's the commercial property of the nail salon. So you're looking north that way. The 33 lots involves the Dix from the Ace Hardware west to the Desert Industries is the portion that they'll use for the residential, except for that commercial lot. And they will commit an easement at this entrance for future use to the east if that ever converts in the future. Now, that's important to understand because these are private roads. If they were a public road, we would not have a concern because it's publicly dedicated and we control the access to that road. But since this is a private road, they will maintain the ability for a distance to this point for future shared access for another development to tie into in the future.
So I read in the report that that was a concern, that they've designed it so that it could be such, but not necessarily committed, and they could back out on that. Was that a preliminary report, and then that's been changed?
They're committing that it will be dedicated for public access.
Is that written in as a
separate.
condition?
Yeah, it's written as a
approval?
condition as part of their final plat to
Okay.
do that. That's an awkward situation because it is a private road, and certainly a homeowners association would be concerned about another development, public or private road, tying into their project. And so it was a little bit of debate on whether we dedicate just a short portion of that road. An example would be is when you go through the RBs and the, is it O'Reilly? That roadway fronting along the gas station till you hit the Walmart side is public, but it dead ends into a private parking lot. That's a concern from the city standpoint, to be maintaining short segments of road, no turnarounds and so forth. So the discussion at the staff and the planning commission level was simply to provide that permanent right for somebody to tie in so that we can use that into the future if the Dix Ace area ever redevelops. And so that was a requirement of the city's general plan, and so they're providing it. Other than that, I'll let the developer talk about the single family, the design, the amenities, answer any of your questions, and if you have other further specific questions, I make myself available, and then you can host your hearing, and then we can answer further questions if they come up from the public hearing. But that's all I have for now.
I have one question. Where this is coming through as a PDO, if they don't do this more or less exact thing, then it's no longer zone commercial medium. Is that correct? They can't come back and say, well, we've decided not to do single family homes, we're going to do twin homes. That can't happen right now. Is that correct?
Well, you're 50% right. The right part you have is that your PDO approval defines what can be built. If they don't follow that, then the PDO is no longer effective.
Okay.
It doesn't change the zoning back automatically. The city would, if they default on the PDO, the city would then have to initiate another process to remove the PDO from it. But you couldn't come in without, so your example is they're committed to the single family. They don't want to commit the single family. Their PDO is not expired, but they're not complying with the approval. They would have to amend the PDO, go through this same process, and amend the PDO to something else, and the council and planning commission and the public would weigh in on that alternative, whether that alternative replacement can be granted an amendment to the PDO or not. But essentially, it'd be a new request to change the parameters.
So essentially, the answer is they can't change it without us
Being
agreeing
involved.
to it.
Correct. That was the target of putting that PDO requirement in the city's general plan.
Any further questions for staff before we give the applicant their time to present? The applicant,
yet.
the applicant first, then citizens. Do we have the applicant here that wants to do a presentation, or do you want to do a presentation, or?
I can say a few words, yeah.
Come on up, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
Is this one of those awkward getting to know you moments where I have to tell something interesting about myself?
No, that happened in our work session earlier.
Okay.
So you're good.
My name's Patrick Scott. I'm with Brighton Development. Taylor Spendlove has been the one, I think, dealing with most of this. I think many of you know him fairly well at this point. I live in Kaysville. The interesting thing I always give about myself is I delivered one of my kids at home, not on purpose. So I'm on the birth certificate as the doctor. So I can, I'm a doctor without going to medical school. I think the easiest thing for me would be to answer questions, but I will give a brief overview. Corey hit, I think, probably the most important parts. Most of the homes that will be built in the subdivision will be two-story homes, given the size of the lots. Lots 30 through 33 there are a little bit deeper, and we may have the opportunity to build some ramblers, single-story homes on those. But I think for the most part it'll be mostly two-story homes. We've got the open space there to the west, with some great landscaping and paths. We've got a park tot lot area there, several different picnic areas scattered through there, and an open field, just play field that people can use for playing catch or whatever they'd like to do. We've got an increased landscape amenity there at the along Pages Lane, along the frontage there, as well as the entries, and that kind of continues along the roads that run north and south. There will be a little bit increased landscape presence there to keep those streets looking nice. Let's see. I think that's a general overview of it. Are there specific questions you have that I can answer at this point, or I can come back up later after we've had citizens comment, or however you'd like me to do it?
So one of the first questions that comes to mind is looking at your timeline as far as start to finish. Can you elaborate on that? It seems fairly aggressive.
So timing is always dependent on how quickly we can get things approved, and so what we've provided is kind of a draft. Let me just find it here. But yeah, our plan would be to this winter commence with the demolition of the site and begin most of the utility work on site, so that as we get into spring, we're in a position to move forward with the road construction, and just as soon as plants allow and weather permitting, we could pave in the spring and commence home construction. So,
and given a perfect world, your anticipated completion date of the project?
A perfect world? I just have to make sure. Did he provide that as part of the schedule? I apologize. I didn't put that together. It looks like this is mostly just a construction schedule. In a perfect world, 33 homes, you'd sell through in about a year and a half, and so I mean maybe 2 to 2.5 years construction wise, once roads are finished.
I have a question. So your park and your tot lot and all of that, is that for just those residents, or is it open to the neighborhoods around?
Corey? Private. That's what I was gonna say. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't lying to you. It's an HOA park that they'll maintain, and I suppose it would be within their right to make that exclusive if they wanted to.
And as far as the nature of the ingress and egress from the two roads, are you working to make sure that there is no parking on that, or is it going to be able to accommodate fire and rescue vehicles? If there's an issue down at house number 29, we're going to ensure that they're going to be able to get in and out of there correctly?
My understanding again on this is that with the private right-of-way, there won't be parking allowed on the roads, which is why we've provided the 30 visitor parking stalls. So
Under their design plan, the 30 visitor stalls are located there. With the road design, you're 27 feet of asphalt, so under the fire code, it would allow one-side parking if they wanted to do parking. But I understand from Taylor in the design that they were not planning on street parking. They're planning on the garages for the 2 and the driveways for 2 more. Then the 30 stalls in addition to that.
So if there's any issues up at the access points, that is the HOA's responsibility to take care of that?
They'd be responsible for enforcing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're clear on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, council, any further questions? At this point, then, if I will, this is a matter for a public hearing. So this is the point where I will open the public hearing, and that any member of the public can come and address this specific issue. So the public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Stephen Merrill. I'm a physician here in the Centerville City. I've actually delivered babies in our city. I did go to medical school. I've got the debt to prove it and the credentials as well. I'm concerned about this and frankly feel a little bit ignored. We met as citizens when this project was initially described, and I thought we'd come out independently as citizens against the idea of high-density housing. And I don't know exactly how we're phrasing what that is, but 6 homes in 1 acre seems like high density to me. We are permanent residents. We have bought homes. We plan on staying in this area. And if needed, I'm sure we could gather the signature of almost every member of that area in opposition to this plan. It's frustrating because what we are looking for is parks and recreation for that area. Island View Park, which is going to be on the agenda at some point today, is in disrepair. It's away from us as city members. I'm on the Centerville Cares group that Clark, our Mayor Wilkinson, has put together, and this concerns me. We're trying to build a city that encourages us to be outdoors, that encourages us to be amongst each other, and putting in another private neighborhood seems to oppose that idea. What we do as Centerville is try and build relationships and be together as a city, and this doesn't work towards that end. There's another city development that was already put in a very similar model. I've been told it has a park. I went in there trying to find it, and I couldn't find it. This is not what we need as citizens, and we're the ones that are going to be there in another 20 years, and we're frankly a little bit offended that plans for just this kind of housing has gone on, regardless of what our opinion has been. So that's concerning. I think that's within 2 minutes, and we've got other individuals that could share similar concerns. So if needed, I can go get signatures of my neighbors and things, but we would urge the council to stop further planning on this development because it's not what we want as a city.
Thank you, Stephen. Further comments from the public?
Yes, my name is Jeff Hale. I live right around the corner. First of all, I want to say thank you. I came before the city council, I don't know, when was it, 2 months ago? To talk about Lake Elbert. And from what I understand, next spring, Lake Elbert will be eliminated. So thank you very much. I also was at that public hearing or public open house, whatever it was. I didn't hear one citizen that lives here that was in favor of this development. I heard lots that didn't want it, and the only ones that I heard that wanted it were the outsiders, the developers or the Bangeter family or Weiniger family. I know a lot of people have talked about making this a park, expanding the cemetery into Island View, and the concerns there have been we don't want to raise taxes. Where are we going to get buried? If we have to go foreign to Bountiful, it'll be $2,800 more to us to be buried there for a couple than it will for their residents. So essentially, if we don't find more land for a cemetery, this could be one, you're essentially raising the taxes on the citizens because we have to go elsewhere. I also am concerned about now we're going to have to probably hire another crossing guard to cross all the kids that will move into here over to J.A. Taylor. We're also going to influence J.A. Taylor that they will have a lot more students that have to live here. I know the concern has come up, well, the Weiniger family needs to make money. It needs, the developer needs to make money. That's not my concern, to tell you the truth. To me, if they want to make money, figure out how to get a commercial in there. Don't charge an arm and a leg for rent for a building that's so old. Tear it down, put in a new commercial building. make it work. I know they can if they want to. I don't think they want to. They see this as a quick fix. I'm going to get the money and leave. So please listen to the citizens. I've not heard ever one citizen say, I want more housing there. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jeremy Jepson, and I too wanted to voice my opinion that I oppose this type of development, simply because I live right there. I live right next to the neighborhood. We, as citizens in the southern part of Centerville, want to have a neighborhood where you have space, where your kids can play. It's not that you have, these higher density housings where you have families that might not stay for a long time. They might, but they might not. There's no yards for them to play in. Having a park's great, but having it private, not so great. And I too was here when we had that open house, and I too did not hear many, if any, people approving of such a development. And to be honest with you, just like Stephen was saying, I do feel ignored. I don't feel like our voice counted. The reason being is because I thought we did speak our opinion during that open house, and here we are again, trying to do it again. So once again, I appreciate you guys listening to us, and please take what we have to say to heart, because we live here. As members in the northern part of the city, they don't have to have these situations come up where they're putting in 33 homes in such a small area. They are able to have a city where it's a small, bedroom type community. And now we're threatened of not being able to have that same ideal here in Centerville. So I hope you guys can understand where we're coming from and you listen to us as concerned citizens, that we truly do want to have this smaller, quieter community, and we feel like this will threaten that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy.
My name's Kara Hale. I'm married to Jeff. Anyway, I just wanted to say also, I have a lot of friends, and we found out late that this was being talked about tonight, through an email, and I talked to a lot of my friends, and frankly, there was a lot of apathy. We voiced our opinion. The city council is going to do what they want. They don't care what we say. It's probably already a done deal. Why should I take 2 more hours of my time to go talk to someone that doesn't care? So that was sad to me, because I don't feel like the members feel that way. I would think you wouldn't, but that's how we felt. That's how our little community felt. We had, I don't know, a lot of people here that night. It was full, and no one wanted housing. And I think it would be rushing to just do this. I think there's better solutions. I do agree. Somehow we have to solve a cemetery problem. Somehow we have to solve all these problems. We can't just say it's hard and it's expensive, so ignore it. I just hope we can rethink and discuss more. I know a lot of people would have come had they felt like they would be listened to, and had they known you were actually voting. I mean, they were like, it's probably a done deal. They're probably just informing us what they did. They didn't know. And I talked with Robin extensively when we met. I sub for the crossing guards. So we met and I talked, and she said, stay informed. And I said, I don't know how to get informed. Where was this information for all of the citizens? Because it wasn't there. I mean, I've been trying to be informed. I don't know anyone at Brighton Homes. I guess I should have started calling. I don't know the Weininger family. I don't know. So I feel like you haven't informed the citizens, and to vote on this tonight would be a disservice, and it would be disappointing. I would be disappointed as a citizen. I would feel not listened to. So I hope you put it on hold at least, and let the citizens come again and show us all the numbers, and show us all the work you've done, and show us why it's not feasible, and show us the numbers for what it would cost to put the cemetery at Island View, and what it would cost. I want to see, you can't just say it's too expensive. I mean, you got to tell me why, and let the citizens decide if they want to pay more money to be buried in Centerville. I mean, let them decide, and give the information out, and then let people come. Thank you.
Further comments from the public?
My name's Craig Adams. I live in Bountiful, the street just south of this, behind the old Dick's Market property. I've been tracking the development and the options for this property. I know that the seller has wanted to go commercial again and hasn't been able to do that. and heard the other options. So I'm actually in favor of this development. I like the medium density and the wanting to do single-family homes there. I don't know if we have the option anymore, the luxury of doing the large, four single-family homes per acre anymore. It needs to be commercially viable. I understand that, and I see that there's compromise made there. The planning meeting minutes that I read, I was impressed with, and the discussions and the options presented there, and I like what the developer has come to. And so I support it. I've been there 28 years, and to see families come in to the neighborhood, I welcome that.
So you're okay with construction in your backyard potentially for 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
We're seeing it already. There's a little cul-de-sac down the street that's being developed, some homes, and that's nice too. I'm happy to see those. I actually prefer the open space, but they chose to sell, and that's great. And we're getting some homes in there too. So I'm happy to see that, and I'm opposed to any higher density housing than what has been presented now. So I'm glad that this is coming forward, and I hope it can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Eliason. I live kind of across the street from this. I also teach school at Taylor Elementary, and we're crowded, and we have some portables that came on. And to think of this many kids being added to the school, I want you to consider that too. If we wanted to live somewhere where there was higher density than what it is, we would have moved there. We would have moved in a development with this kind of stuff, and we chose where we live because it is not high density. So the thought of having this many houses come this close makes me nervous as a resident because it's not what I wanted. I don't want the congestion of that many more people in this area. And I also want you to consider the impact on our school because we are overstretched. We brought in 2 more portables this year, and I don't know where you're going to put all the kids if you do this. So consider what that's going to cost the people who are already here and the education of the children that are already here when we add this much more. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. So, excuse me, further comments?
Jennifer Turnbloom, I'm from Centerville. You've heard me enough, but I have mixed emotions about this because I can understand the neighbors not wanting 33 houses, and I can understand neighbors in my neighborhood that are desperate to find a house in Centerville. They don't want to have to leave Centerville. And this may not be the best option for everybody, and it certainly is not my ideal option. I'd love to see like 20 houses there. But can anybody afford 20 houses? No, no. So I have mixed emotions. I can understand the winegraders' point of view because they've tried for 7 years to get somebody commercial in there. And now they're sitting on property that they can't do anything with. A new cemetery in the city is necessary, but can the city afford commercial property to put a cemetery in? Nobody could afford to be buried anyway. It would still bring $2,800 a plot for a couple if you were to do this. I noticed that they're talking about putting a mausoleum. The city's considering a mausoleum. It's a great option. My childhood memory is going to mausoleum on Memorial Day with my grandmother to take flowers to her parents. So there's other options than high-priced properties to have a cemetery. I don't like HOAs at all. I wish this could just be a nice community that had houses built in it, but I understand that a lot of people don't care about that. And another thing, if anybody could answer it, I get the feeling this is kind of similar to Centerville Commons, which I think is higher density than this. And it's a nice neighborhood that people want to be in. Bill's shaking his head, it's not. So it's about the same. So I don't know. I can understand everybody's frustration because I've been down here for 20 years because I live on Main Street. I've been down here multiple times trying to preserve my kind of life on Main Street, and we get to come back if anybody's interested. And so I don't, envy you your position at all. But I do thank you for all the effort you put in. I don't think anybody realizes how much time away from your families that you dedicate to serving us, and that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Further?
One more. Jeff Berthold. I live on 4th South and 5th East, and my question is this little curved road, is that an intersection with 3rd East? It would be a jog. Do you know tell us how hard, Robin, it is to do a crosswalk? I mean, how many places in Bountiful, Farmington, Salt Lake, where they haven't got an intersection? You got 2. You know, Bountiful's moved streets several times in places because of that problem. You guys will make a decision that won't affect you guys because you'll be gone. And we'll deal with it. We'll have to deal with it forever. I don't like that idea at all. I think it can be worked out better. Fewer houses, move the streets, make them the right way, because that mobility, you know, moving on the streets is going to be real important as we do things in our lives. I'm retired now, and I go places, and I can't believe what some cities have to put up with because of somebody's decision. You know, mainly, I know, I understand the city needs money. They're going to make money on this. The builders make money. Everybody makes a lot of people happy, but it screws everybody else who's still already planted here. So kind of try to make a decision that's, I don't think this is correct. It can be made better, I think. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
So I'm Jake Willis. I actually don't live close to this. I live in the Northwest, but we have a similar community. And my understanding is that Oakwood purchased the development from, I want to say Henry Walker, maybe, possibly. And they also had an option to flex, and I think they did flex, and it was originally going to be less dense than it was. I don't think ours is this dense, but it definitely affects the quality of life when the houses are very close together. And I'll just speak to that from experience, because we're living here. The density seems like I don't even know how big those lot sizes are, maybe 0.12 or something. But just consider that. And there's a drainage issue that we're dealing with, and you know, we don't know how to go about remedying that with Oakwood, and it's always a challenge for residents to deal with the builders. And I think originally Oakwood was going to have, or Henry Walker was going to have 20 to 24 homes, and they flexed it, I think, to 29, and they packed in more, so be wary of that. Residents, and that not being a public space, I think, is a big turnoff for the people that live around it.
Thank you. Any more comments from the public? If not, I will close the public hearing, and the applicant, do you have any response to the public comments?
I think the majority of the comments centered around the process and kind of what's happened, and so I think many of you would be better able to speak to that than I would. I will say that it's been a long time getting here. We've gone through several different iterations of this. I think both plans presented at the community open house were more dense than this and involved attached housing. And we've worked with the council over many months to come up with something that would be single family, because we knew that was very important to the residents, and also something that could be affordable is a hard word in this housing market, because there's not much that people would consider affordable, and that's coming from a builder. I mean, it's becoming increasingly difficult to sell homes, not because we're making more money, but because land is more expensive, and building materials and labor and everything is more expensive, and so it's hard to build an affordable home. But I think this strikes a really good balance between what a perfect world would be, and the world we live in, and it'll be a great, beautiful community with elevated architectural standards and great landscaping that will be a great amenity to the community as a whole for a long time. In regards to the landscape not being public, that's always a hard thing, and I've been in situations before where, as the developer, we improve the park and the city takes on the maintenance obligation for that, and that's kind of a method where the city doesn't have to spend money on installing the park, but it can become a public benefit. So, that's always an option, but where the HOA is paying to maintain this, it's hard to tell a resident that's paying to maintain this that all of their neighbors who aren't paying to maintain it get to use it. And so, I see both sides there. I've experienced both sides, but I think we'd be open to exploring some different ways of doing that if that's important to the city. So, anything else you'd like me to address?
We may have something.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be here.
Yes, please stay. So now, any further questions from council for the staff or applicant or discussion?
Well, we've got Corey here. This is always a question that comes up, and you love when we talk about density. Can you tell us from your professional experience, what is medium density in other cities around here, and what would be your expectations of medium density? And we will provide a separate exit for you.
I was going to say, are you canceling your closed session at the end of the meeting? First of all, just step back. Density is a concern for everybody. And I think there is the mental perception of densities and the experience of densities and then the planning of densities. Densities as a whole, from my perspective as a professional, we are struggling along the Wasatch Front everywhere. Centerville is not the only place. These concerns that citizens raise are feeling the pressure of the regional growth, and it's coming to every city in various forms. And we struggle along the Wasatch Front. When I was a child, we only had 1 million in the state of Utah. So I'm not that old yet. There was 1 million of us here. Now we have 3 million along the Wasatch Front. We have 5 million. If the projections came true, that's always the question about the crystal ball on the projections. But if the projections came true, 2050, we'll have 5 million people on the Wasatch Front. So when you talk about lane congestions, West Davis corridor, cars running, we're all feeling the density. We're all feeling that pressure. So it doesn't matter whether it's quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots. We'll continue to feel the pressure of how successful Utah is and the problem with a lake and a set of mountains with a small corridor in between where people want to live. So we'll feel that. That's legit, and feeling from that standpoint. Densities down at more of the local level, it varies. For Centerville, we are predominantly a single-family community. We have seen, when I arrived here in 2004, the word semi-rural community was being used regularly. So that's 2004. Semi-rural is still used regularly in people's feelings about Centerville. Talk to the old-timers. Parish Lane and pheasant hunting was the way of life, and that's long been lost, and we've seen very much a suburbia to Centerville. And that's been a threat. That's been a threat not only perceptually, but the experience. A lot of people have been able to enjoy the expansion of the city. Most of everything north of Parish Lane, west of Main Street is your 70s to 90s type growth. And a lot of people living here at that time didn't like that growth. The discussion about the interchange. Had we not had the interchange at Parish Lane and at Pages, we'd be having very different discussions today. And maybe the pheasants would still be around, for all we know. So locally, you were feeling the pressure. Not just on the regional, you're feeling the pressure here. As far as density goes, densities vary by the tolerance of temperature of a community. If you're looking at a land planning up to 12 units an acre is still low density. 12 units an acre in Centerville is really resisted. I mean, this council knows very well 12 units an acre. I can classify it in land planning as low density, and you're not going to agree with that statement at all. You know, so we look at low density in Centerville from half acre lots, so you get 2 units per acre, to 4 units per acre. That's what we consider low density. You've bumped medium density to 6. It used to be 8. The council's dropped that due to these experiences that people are feeling. You've dropped to medium to 6. That's 2 units more per acre than the 4. If you think about, I know the densities over here in the southwest area that's developed, they're 5th acre lots. So they're about 5 units an acre. When you had, with the old zoning in Centerville was R18, 8,000 square foot lots, you're down to that. You're below that. And then you had the 10,000. So you're at 9,000 for a 5th acre. 8,000 is below the 5th acre, and many subdivisions are at the 8,000 square foot. So this 4 units an acre is considered low density, but in some sense in Centerville's development pattern, it's a misnomer because a lot of your development is at 5th acre lots. So you're at 5 units an acre. So 6 is only 1 unit above. Is that a tolerant level? You've heard comments that still feels claustrophobic. Flag lots, underutilized property, somebody plots a home back behind existing homes, that creates a different feeling, and it has a claustrophobic feeling. It may be a large lot back there, but another home in a perceived area that was all everybody's backyards is an invasion and feels dense. But I would say at 6 units an acre, you're not really heavy on density. You're just slightly above the 5th acre lot, which is a pretty standard lot size throughout Centerville.
So Corey, Centerville Commons is 5.7?
Yes.
The development that this gentleman was talking about up there on Lund Lane and frontage, how many is that?
About 5.25. They came in with their 1/4 acre lot zoning, did a PDO, requested the density bonus. The city gave the density bonus in exchange in help build our regional detention pipes that went under UTA. It's a $300,000 project. The city paid $150,000. The developer paid $150,000 of that, and part of that negotiated agreement of the PDO was the 20 whatever units were in Woods Park. So they are about 5.25, 5.33.
5.3.
I'm not understanding. 5.25, 5.33 per acre?
Per acre.
Okay, so just a shade less than Commons and
correct
20% less than this.
What are the little houses down on the bottom of Chase Lane? Do you know that one?
Silver Oaks, 6.7.
Yeah, Silver Oaks is a pre-2003 zone, I believe, change.
So I have kind of a question and maybe a little bit of a statement too. For all of you that don't know me, when you say we're not listening, I want you to know I'm the town clamorer, and that's how I got here. And then staff will tell you nobody's fought harder against density than me. So with that in mind, when I first started on this project, and I don't want to be quoted wrong, but at one point with the form-based zoning, couldn't this have been 20 or over per acre? It seems like at one time you told me this could go 22 to 27.
If you were to scrape the project in that old mixed use, you're probably arriving to that 18 units per acre.
So when I started fighting this, it was 20 per acre. When I got on city council, medium density was 8 per acre. That was conditional use, but I quickly found out before I was on city council that conditional use really means you can have it. They can have conditions that they have to meet, but you can't tell them no if they meet the conditions. So just in the last few months, we changed residential medium from 8 to 6 per acre. So we are listening to you. We are trying to get things where the citizens want that thing. And so I think you have to be careful. And I do not at this point know whether I'm for this or against it. So I'm not advocating. I'm just saying be careful when you have a council that is maybe more friendly to density, because we're not very friendly to density. We might turn this down and you might end up with 22 per acre, because that's what would have happened when I got involved several years ago. And if you want, I've had some people tell me, Kara was one, she said, I'd like mixed use, so there's some little shops over there. Well, mixed use is code for high density, because the little shops only come if you build the density over top of them to make them work, or around them. If you go up to Station Park, you'll notice all of the density that's being built around it to help it to be sustainable. That was agreed with Farmington before they ever built Station Park. So I'm walking a really fine line right now, because I realize when I'm off city council, I'm not developers' favorite friends. He will tell you I'm not Brighton Homes' favorite person. But Spencer loves me anyway. But I'm concerned that this may end up at 10 or 12 per acre, and we may really be wishing for this. Commercial-wise, yes, we love commercial. Have Dick's Market really tried to market it? Yes. I've tried to market it. Harmon's has been approached, Smith's has been approached, the Whole Food stores have been approached. If you think that Dick's doesn't want their money out of that property, they've tried their very hardest to sell that piece of property. And it was worth way more commercial than it is residential. And residential isn't going to help the city. Commercial would have been better for the city. So when you say the city wants to make money, we're certainly not doing this to make money. My only concern is I want you guys to think about, and because like I said, I haven't got all my facts either, but I want you to get the facts and know what it might be in 5 years from now as to what you're fighting right now. Because I have fought density in this area and on Main Street for 20 years. And I've been to, like I said, be careful, because when you start coming through that door, look where you can end up. I had no intentions of ever being on city council. This was the farthest thing that, even 3 nights before I put in to run for city council, I didn't think I'd ever run for city council. So I do want you to be aware that there is this piece of property. Somebody does own this piece of property, and you have a council right now that has just lowered your density on this. So that was part of our reasoning, is we didn't want 8 per acre anywhere. Some of you people that are here fighting it right now are living on 5 per acre, and you don't even know it, because the old part of Centerville was mostly 5 per acre. So if you're living in that area, you might go home and look and see what you're living on. Your house is teeny, but their houses are teeny too.
It's not 10 feet. It's not 10 feet to my neighbors.
So.
If we can reopen it, we can, discuss this more.
And so I would like everybody to get more educated. My proposal tonight would be to continue this public hearing for another 2 weeks.
Well, we need a motion.
Okay,
if
well,
we're-
but
if we're
I'm
gonna do
glad.
that.
When we're done.
We're not done.
We're not done.
We're not done talking
We
yet.
haven't finished any debate yet, so.
So I'm just saying, as far as I'm concerned, that would be my preference, so that we can hear more of what. Now, I actually have had 3 neighbors off of 30s call me and want the number for Brighton Homes, because they were so excited they wanted to come out and try and recruit the rest of the neighbors, because they were so afraid, because they've been here longer and know what has been looked at and proposed for that area. So I think that's why this gentleman is here. I think he's probably been in it longer and realizes what might end up there. So, like I said, I am totally on your side. If you knew how many times they've cringed when I walked through that door, you don't want to know how many doors I've knocked on trying to rally people around. So I think we need to have some more education and decide for sure if we want it or we don't want it. And right now, I think everybody needs to decide, I think you need to know what you could get before you fight this, because I don't think I personally don't think you're going to see residential or commercial in that area. I don't think commercial right there is going to go any more than it would if you put it up on 2050 North, and because it's residential all around it now. We don't have, the freeway was supposed to get off on Pages Lane, and that's how that commercial came, and then we lost most of our commercial. That's why JCPenney's left. I mean, there isn't traffic there for a store as much as my mother would like Dick's Market to move back there. And if I had enough clout, that's what I'd make them do. But anyway, I personally, I want you to know we are listening to you. We are trying. We have lowered your densities. But be careful, because I don't want to see this when I'm gone and have the developers have a friendly person sitting up here and give them 20 per acre, which could happen.
Robin, I'll piggyback on that to the point of commercial, and I've heard some of how much we'd like to see commercial stay in the area. I've also heard concerns about the impact on the school, the impact on the traffic, the impact on the neighborhood of these 33 homes. And if we measure that against the impact of successful commercial development, this is much, much less. So it's friendlier to the kids going to J.A. Taylor and their safety. It's friendlier to the neighborhood streets and their traffic levels. So again, to Robin's point, let's always remember, if we're saying no to something, we are saying yes to something else. And so we do need to be very careful in considering what the other thing might be and its impacts.
And part of this process, I don't want to feel like we're lecturing so much, because I've sat exactly where you're sitting on other issues, and I've been frustrated, felt like the council didn't listen, we were steamrollered. We do have to react every time a petitioner comes in. There is no one and done where we voiced our opposition and then developers go away and property owners have no rights. They have the right to request these be considered. So please understand that this is not meant to be a slap in the face. This is recognizing there are property owner rights, and because they have rights, they have the right to make these petitions before the Planning Commission, who then brings them up to the City Council. So in fairness to those who are property right holders, yourselves included, you do have rights, and so does this property owner. Now, in fairness to this property owner, and you can go back and watch any of the YouTubes you want, you do have neighbors in your area that have come to this council and said, we think 17 per acre. You need to have more. And I actually am on record. I rarely do this, but I called out that individual and said, there's no way that neighborhood wants 17 per acre. Not on a month of Sundays will that work. And it's been already articulated pretty well. My concern is, and this is my current concern, this is the dilemma I have. Your city council has an election that comes up every couple of years. The whole face of your city council could change in a year. 3 seats are up for election. Now, if you have 3 proponents of high density who decide they want it to look like what's on the other side of the street, and they want it to be matching with what's inside Bountiful's borders, that's a potential. This part I struggle with is if I say yes to this, and is it a perfect development? No, there are things I could see changing about it. If I say yes to it, in my mind, I'm saying I'm solving this problem for the density at the lowest possible number I can for a period of time. A future council isn't going to override this because there's already something there. That's why I'm asking Corey about the PDO, and I've asked the developer about the timeline. If there's a decision made, I want to make sure that I can, one, live with the decision, and that a future council isn't going to come in and say, let's scrape the whole thing off and start over with a higher density. That, to me, is the nightmare scenario. This, I'm not as opposed to, simply because it is at that 6 units per acre. It's not higher than that. I'm worried about what could happen, because to me, if you go to the worst possible density that I can think of, both commercial and residential, is if you go up to Sugar House, go up to the 21st South area, try navigating in those parking lots. That is, they've packed it in as tight as you can go, and that loses everything. Is this the best possible solution? I'm not in favor of enclave type neighborhoods, but we actually saw a proposal at a previous point that was recommending a gated community. It's like, no, you can't be in Centerville and not of it, so to speak. You've got to participate in the community. Can we make it better? I don't know. This is where I look to the professionals like Corey, who've done a lot of this negotiation, the Planning Commission that's weighed in on this. to me, and I'm speaking to the council as well, as my concern is what goes in here if we don't? Because I myself have pushed the property owner and have mentioned in public meetings that I don't believe it's commercially viable and think that it should be signaled toward residential. We know that we can't buy this land for a park. It's not. We can't demo it. We can't afford the land. There's no way for us to do that, and the property owner doesn't want to do that. So what do we do?
And we can't do it for a cemetery either.
Another thing that we've listened to you is, since the project went in down on the bottom of Porter's Lane, we have increased the road size. We've put sidewalks on both sides of the road. So if this had gone in before this council and before we made these decisions, they could have put sidewalks on only one side and maybe no sides, and the road would have been several feet narrower. So we have increased your sidewalks, we've increased your roads, we've lowered your density. I mean, I feel like we're trying.
So it sounds like you're saying this is the best that you've been able to negotiate in many different instances. Yeah, I don't know if the forum's still open.
Well, it's...
The public hearing's closed.
We just keep getting, there's messages that are directly said to us, and we can't respond.
That's, unfortunately, I hate this because it's the problem is that what we end up, and I'm getting pulled into it myself, is the problem is when we engage in this process, it's always hard when you're on the way home to go, wait a minute, I thought I should have said this. And that's why I think Robin is looking towards possibly extending the public comment and asking for motion to look at that, which I would be totally in support of, Robin, when you make that. The issue that we have is that as citizen legislators, you've entrusted us to make some decisions, and we can be influenced by public opinion. We should be influenced by public opinion. But at the end of the day, you've entrusted all of us to make the best possible decision for what we can do. And I will tell you, from sitting on that side, I don't always agree with the legislative decisions, but I trust that in this specific case, as with this council as a whole, I've never seen a harder working group. That camera is up there because this council wanted to make sure we have access. It doesn't mean it's entertaining watching, but we're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can. So I do want you to feel, at least if I were sitting in your seat, this is not meant to be a one-way lecture. It's meant to be, we're trying. We are really trying. And I do wonder what are the options. We've been dating for a long time. This might be towards the end of the best possibles before we head into the next category. And that's what scares me going forward. But Robin, do you want to make that motion? I will totally support that.
If I could just make one comment for the record. In the public comment period, there was some discussion about whether the school district could handle the students here. I just want to remind you not to base your decision on whether or not the school district can handle the new children here. There is a state statute that says that we shouldn't take that into consideration, but it is a legislative decision that you have broad discretion other than that one point. Now you can make a motion.
That's why you make the big bucks, right, Lisa?
So we want to listen to you. We want to hear from you. I'm kind of torn up here right now because if we're going to have a motion to delay, then there's going to be more time to comment anyway. I mean, I could reopen the public hearing, but if that's where we're headed with it anyway, then so I need to know from the council, I'm really looking for a motion of what you want to do.
I think several of us have made it clear, and I feel strongly I would like to have time to consider the things that have been said and give people to make additional comments. I would resist voting tonight whether or not we extend the public hearing. I'm less definite on, but I would not vote. I would not want to vote tonight. So I would support Robin's motion in that direction, which hasn't been made yet.
But could I just tell you, that is one thing that this council has been pretty strong about, is that in past councils, the public hearing and the vote took place at the same time. And this council has pushed back hard to say we want to listen and then we want to go home and think about it before we vote. So we really are trying to to hear you and to understand where you're coming from. And I live in that south section as well, and I understand the push and the frustration that the south is the one that's been getting all the density. It is, and it's frustrating, and that's where I met Robin, was sitting in these seats saying we could do so much better than these people up here with all their density, and that was a lot of years ago. So thank you for coming, because we're looking for good people every couple years. And I understand the frustration of the cemetery, and as George has pointed out, we do have YouTube. You can go back and look at it. We have been discussing the cemetery options and the federal strings that are attached to Island View because of the way it was created, and there are a lot of things that we've been stressing over and spent a lot of hours for the last couple of years. If you want a brief recap, we can do that, but if not, there are YouTube things of it.
So
we really have tried to say, let's not vote in a rush. Let's make sure we listen.
Robin, we keep trying to goad you into a motion. What is it that we're trying to make you motion?
So I would like to make a motion that we keep the public hearing open and we table this until our next meeting.
So public hearing comments through email, or
or next.
Or,
I'd like our
okay.
next meeting. I'd like to let them finish.
So restate your motion for.
Okay, I would like a motion where we table and we continue this till our next meeting, and we continue the public hearing as well through email and at our next meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have a further debate or discussion on the motion?
The only thing that I think we need to do is put a time frame around that, because we could end up exactly in the same issue just 1 month later, which is we're still having a public hearing and then we're still making a vote the same night. So I would be more inclined to do to extend public comment through a period prior to the city council, so we have some time to deliberate this and debate what all the comments are that come in.
I agree with that. Encourage the additional public comment to come in prior to the meeting, so that it avoids that feeling of just a repeat of voting the same night. We're hearing new comments.
Right.
Yeah.
So you, Councilman McEwen, are looking at further at another council meeting, the public being able to voice their opinion and not taking a vote on that.
Well, I'd like to be able to take comment up through just prior to the meeting, so that we have a cutoff, so we have time to adequately read this, because we'll be exactly where we are tonight, which is we'll have citizens who have taken their time to come out and comment, and we'll be like, thank you, okay, now we're holding the vote, and that looks just as disingenuous as if we were to suddenly do it tonight, even though we've done a lot of prep. Not saying we're all fixed on that, but I would like to look at how we can do that, Robin, so that we make sure that people have an opportunity to comment, we have time to consider it, and people feel heard. So
I would make a friendly amendment to the motion.
Did we get a second on Robin's motion?
She had a second.
So yeah, just go ahead and move to amend the motion.
So I'm going to make a motion for friendly amendment to continue public comment through Wednesday, the 12th. And then direct Steve and the staff to accumulate those and provide those to us as quickly as possible after the 12th, so that we can then be in a position to vote on during the next meeting, which is on the 18th.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the motion. We have a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
And could we clarify, where do you want them to send the comments? Email-wise, do you want it to go to, what's the general city council
City
one?
council.
I mean, if it comes through another email and we detect it, we can include that, but I think there ought to be one main one identified.
City council at centervilleut.com.
And then that.
And if one comes to any council person directly, we will forward it to that.
Yeah. That's good. And you would get it directly if it's sent to city council at centervilleut.com. If they send it through the website in the comment section, we'll get that as well and make that available to you. But I think we ought to encourage primarily that specific email to the city council.
And my assumption is all these emails will be in the packet as public comment. So
right.
They'll be available for anyone to look at. Okay.
And since we did that as a motion to amend, you can just vote on the motion to amend, and then if that passes, then you vote on the motion as amended.
with the amendment. Yeah. As
Robin,
amended.
are you good with that?
I guess.
So was there a second to that motion to amend?
I seconded
To
it.
Bill's motion to amend, yes, there was a second by Councilman McEwen. Okay, so let's vote on the motion to amend. Okay.
Aye.
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 So that motion passes 5-0.
So
Mayor,
the
let-
motion is now to table the matter and to continue public comment, but through email and in writing through Wednesday, the 12th. And then
Correct.
staff will collect that and provide it to the council for their decision-making process on the 18th.
Correct.
That's the motion as amended.
That's correct. And that's been, motion has been forwarded and seconded, so we vote again. Councilwoman Meekum,
Aye.
would you start us?
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes 5-0 as well.
Mayor, could I again clarify? I'm not sure exactly what I said about the email address. It's, and Jake's listening so that I get this correct. City Council at centervilleut.com. Is that right, Jake?
And or just go to the website.
Or go to the website, send it to the city council's attention, and we'll get it to them
I'd
that
also
way.
like to take the opportunity, as I try to take this opportunity as often as possible when I hear that there are interested citizens, to remind citizens that you can go to the city website and down at the left side, well, at least it's been historically there. I haven't checked recently with some updates that we've had. There's a spot that says Get Connected. And if you go to that spot, you can sign up for the Planning Commission and City Council agendas to be sent to your email inbox. And this is what I did for years before I was on the City Council. And so those agendas would come straight to my inbox, and I could just take 1 minute or less and scan through the items and see if there was an item I cared about. And then I could read the staff report or call a council member to get further information on that upcoming item. So I highly recommend that as a way to stay informed.
And let me say thank you that you've come out.
Yeah, it's
there's 16,000 odd of us who are in this community, and not everyone comes out and participates. So don't feel like you've wasted your evening. We're hearing, and we appreciate it, because otherwise it's decisions in a vacuum. So your comments are well thought out, and we really appreciate them. We really do.
I want to thank you also, because once I got on, I found out we're all called the clammers, and I was really sad, so I'm glad there's more clammers.
And I've tried to keep the conversation focused tonight on this issue. Let me tell you, from my personal standpoint, I have 3 things I've been knocking myself out on over the last month. This winter's initiative on wellness, parks and pickleball courts, and cemetery space. And I didn't address any of that tonight. You're free to call me at any time, or any council member, but and we are working hard on that. I know I am personally, and that's not something I addressed tonight. And by the way, you can call any of these council members at 3 in the morning. They'd love to hear from you.
Gee, thanks.
I do always say any time, but I never actually specify 3 in the morning.
Within reason. And thank you so much for coming out. We're continuing on with our council meeting, so you're welcome to stay. But we're moving on to the next agenda item. Based on the time we're looking at here, some shuffling of the agenda possibly. Who do we have from the public that?
Well, this next item, Mayor, does include a public hearing. We probably ought to take it
Yes.
next.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that right. But yes, let's continue on with item 5, since that is a public hearing. This is a Proposition 1 grant application regarding South Frontage Road improvements. And I believe Jake Smith is going to introduce that.
Yeah, and I'll be brief. As you know, the county just started a new program where the cities can submit for a grant to get some access to their Prop 1 money for alternative transportation options. One that we've identified, and we submitted a letter of intent a few months ago, was for bike lanes on the South Frontage Road. We tried a few other ways to get some federal money before, so this is an attempt again to get it through the county Prop 1 money. If you look at here, the idea behind this project, this is the South Frontage Road. That's kind of hard to see, but The idea is to widen the road from about 350, about 300 south. Where would that be exactly? Well, I guess just half a block up there from Porter Lane. Restripe both sides of the road so we have 5-foot bike lanes. In fact, I'll show you right here. So there's the idea right there, to have the 5-foot bike lanes on both sides. On the east side, finish up the curb and gutter, and then on the west side is the actual widening, and then of course there'd be the slurry seal and the restriping. That's basically what the project is, and that would go all the way down to Pages Lane. Now, the portion that we're asking for, what we're asking for with the Prop 1 money is the 170, what is it, 179, 180,000. Our match would be about 175,000, and that predominantly comes from calling on a deferral agreement, as well as one of the developments that's right now in the approval process.
Although most of the match would come from from the city, though.
Right. Yeah.
Actually,
for the slurry seal and the striping.
If I could interject there, Jake, the match, as we anticipate it, would come a minimum of about 50,000 from 2 adjacent property owners, 70,000 from the city for the slurry seal and striping, and then about 55,000 from the city for curb and gutter on the east side and widening on the east side, unless we can figure out a way to get the other property owners to step up and do that. We have the leverage on a couple of them, but not on the others, so that's how that match would break down.
And one of the questions on the application is whether or not we've had public input. And so that's why we're opening it now to this public hearing, to get that input on this project.
Okay. Thanks. Any questions for Jake before I open the public hearing?
Why those somewhat restricted parameters?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you said from 300 south.
We have, the east side is improved from that point north with curb and gutter and widening on that side, and apparently sufficient width that we could have the bike lanes on both sides from that point north.
Okay.
But south, we have gaps without curb and gutter on the east side, and the road would have to be widened on both sides towards the south.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I hadn't gone down and looked. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Okay, there's obviously no applicant on this one, so this is an item that is scheduled for public hearing. So we open the public hearing on Davis County Prop 1 application for the South Frontage Road Bike Lane Project. Anybody from the public, please come to one of these microphones on this issue. If no comments from the public, I will close the public hearing, and we will have any further questions on it. If no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
So given what we've heard tonight, Steve, regarding West Davis corridor and alignment, we've talked about South Frontage Road, is there any way, as we're applying for this grant, to bring additional visibility on these other issues at the same time with the county? I mean, I recognize they're separate processes, but as we're applying for bike lanes, can we say, gee, it's really a, kind of horrible that we're spending this money, we've had other infrastructure spends, and now we're looking at this realignment and kind of leverage that up through the county, recognizing they're separate.
Yeah, part of the application is indicating that north part will be finished, and this continues that planned bike lane that goes all the way from Farmington all the way to Bountiful.
So it sounds like it's a great time to apply and say, gee, it's a real shame if we do this wrong. I'm just looking for the right leverage at the county level to help out with UDOT, not Centerville by itself. Just thoughts on that?
Well, I think I hear you saying if we were to be successful in getting this grant and this project, it would bring the county in on our team to.
I think you're reading me 100%. Yeah. If we're gonna apply for these funds and receive them, we need the county to help us in protecting what we're spending the money on.
It would be a logical outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. We have a motion?
Good.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that that staff be directed to go ahead and complete the grant application process as directed. I guess I do have one question before I make that motion, so let me back that up. What's the time frame and what's our financial ability to come up with the matching money?
Well, as I said, a good chunk of the match is, would have to be spent anyway for slurry seal of that road in the next couple of years. So that's about 70,000 of it, of our, and then that leaves about 55,000 potentially for the additional city funds for curb and gutter and widening on the east side along properties that we don't have leverage over at this time. So in my mind, I think the additional cost is worth the opportunity to get this kind of thing done.
I think it makes sense too, but that's why I kind of almost let the let my motion go out first. So I would make a motion that we direct staff to complete the application so that we can attempt to complete this project and expand the bike lanes on South Frontage Road.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Yes. I'm concerned about the adjacent property owners that we do apparently have leverage on. How much of a time frame were you planning on giving them to come up with the money? I know some kind of sock away money a little in advance because they know eventually the improvement's coming, but not everybody is that disciplined.
Right. I think the county expects us to spend it in 2 years. So it could be a project that waits until after next year, potentially. We have also been known to give property owners time to pay it on an installment basis.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
So, you know, we've been known to try and accommodate them in a reasonable way.
So if we do that, is there a lien attached to their property?
Well, I think from this, protecting the city's interest, there needs to be some kind of.
I agree. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah,
Is
that would be a logical way to.
We don't generally do a lien. We enter into the installment agreement, but it hasn't been formalized into a lien.
Well, wait a minute. I think that's a different question. The installment, are you talking about the deferment agreement that's already in place?
No, he's saying if we convert the deferral agreement into an installment contract, at that point.
Is there a lien?
We haven't been doing it that way.
Do we have guarantee that we're going to get paid?
Well, this.
We're exchanging one contractual obligation for another contractual obligation. We're not adding the lien,
but you've got no guarantee.
Right, exactly. So I don't generally advise it, but so we've done it a couple times in the last 5 years, and on this one, I think you'd want to consider how much the dollar amount is and how that would be arranged.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
See, we have a deferral agreement on most of the property along what's it called, Tri-City Polaris? Where there's not curb and gutter now, we have a deferral agreement that we can call upon. Not the entire length that doesn't have curb currently, but most of it. And then the next property is under development review right now for developing. That's the other property that would I would anticipate would contribute.
I would say, Stephanie, doing the grant application and going forward makes sense regardless. I'd like to see a list of what the anticipated cost is by property owner. I mean, even if we were to start the process now, we would have time to back out prior to going forward if we find something too onerous.
Is that an option on this one? I'm always wary of those backing out after we've applied for the grant.
I believe it would be, yeah. I mean, what would the county do? They'd go back to their next one on the list and their priority ranking and give it to them, I expect.
And we don't have real security that we're going to get approval anyway.
That's right. I have no indication of how competitive this will be. I think my gut feeling is it'll be probably less competitive than the one we supported last year with West Bountiful.
Yeah, but that one was $15,000 or $20,000, not $150,000.
Well, actually, we asked for, between the two cities, we asked for over 100,000, I think, from the county, 110,000, something like that.
Oh,
But
was
it
it
was
that much?
for the two cities.
Multiple cities. That helped.
Okay.
But with it being helping complete a regional pathway, I think that
It might be competitive. I mean, well, we ought to try.
I think we should.
I think we should too.
And then if we're fortunate enough to be awarded, we can dig into the details further, and you can decide whether, in fact, you're going to accept the grant award.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Councilman Entz, will you restate the motion? Do you remember?
My motion is that we direct staff to complete the grant application to allow us to widen the road and complete the bike paths on South Frontage Road. Widen the road, do curb and gutter, and complete the bike path on South Frontage Road.
Thank you. We had a second, right?
I seconded that, yes.
Okay, Councilman McEwen, okay. We've had a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mayor, could we take a quick break here?
Everybody good with a break? Quick?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go talk to those down here in the audience.
A quick one.